Good morning. Every morning when I have my morning coffee, I read through a spiritual meditation from a Christian spirituality, from a centre of action and contemplation in the US. It grounds me and helps me to think in a different way about life and being and the world. And even as I'm doing that, I then flick through some of the social media and news feeds on my phone and look at the stories that grab my attention. The news stories, the stories of the day, are about money and about wealth, generation of wealth, or the wealthy people of the world, buying and selling mansions and luxury yachts and planes and goodness knows what else, companies, corporations. But also people who are powerful, people who have positions of authority or who exert power and influence in the world. And then there's the many stories of those who are celebrities, who have some kind of fame or who are known, whose faces we see on the screen in movies or television, or maybe they're musicians or sports stars or whatever else it is. They're known, their faces are known, and their pictures are always appearing. And so are the stories about them. Some for good and some not so good. And it's interesting how the media seems to gravitate towards stories, and I guess we do because they feed us what we perceive we want, about those who are rich and famous and powerful and their lives. And there's something different about their lives to the rest of us, or something that we perceive as different. And maybe it's these people with their money, with their power, with their fame and celebrity, have the kinds of things that all of us are encouraged to pursue, to get richer, to get more money, more acquisition of property and things, to claim more power, to find positions of authority and power, to be famous, well known. These are the things that will bring life and happiness to us. They are the things that we're told will guarantee us life and meaningful life. And it's almost like these things will gain us immortality. Our face being on the screen will live forever. And there's something surprising when an actor or an actress or celebrity is suddenly seen as aging or quite sick or experiencing mental health issues or dies. When someone who has achieved great wealth and fame and power becomes helpless and weak in illness and death, it surprises us. And I wonder if that's because subconsciously we expect them with their money and their power and their wealth to be beyond all that. That subconsciously there is this resistance to death in our society and in our being. That because we won't face the reality of mortality, that when people die, we're shocked and we grieve and we feel the powerlessness of life. And especially when those who have the money and the wealth and the power succumb like the rest of us, that those things that we're told to pursue are seen as perhaps hollow. Yet we still pursue them. And in our world, we pursue the ways of violence and aggression and military might. This week I'm challenged. Mark's story of Jesus is one that I've known and wrestled with for decades. Jesus takes his disciples up north to Caesarea Philippi. It's a particular place, city, that has religious and political significance. It was previously known by the name Paneas, after the Greek god Pan, and there's a grotto there to the Greek god, to this god. And an escarpment. And in the escarpment, carved out are niches that people climb up and put in offerings to the gods. And King Herod the Great built a temple in honour of Caesar Augustus, the Caesar emperor, alive at the time of his reign under Caesar. And then when he died, his kingdom under Rome was divided amongst his sons, and Philip got that part of the territory. And he redeveloped the city, rebuilt parts of the city, and he called it Caesarea to curry favour with the emperor. But he called it Caesarea Philippi to mark it off as different from the Caesarea on the coast, Caesarea Maritima, the great port city. And so Caesarea Philippi, named after the Caesar and himself, the king, became his administrative centre. It was a centre of religion and politics and power and might. The military might of Rome, of the Greek Empire before that, then the Roman Empire, was all there. It was marked off as a city where the elements of power and might were on display. And in the midst of this city, Jesus says to his disciples, "So, what's the word on the street? Who do people say that I am?" And they say John the Baptist, Elijah, one of the prophets. There's probably other names that they don't give, but he then says, "So who do you say that I am?" You've seen me, you've lived with me, you've experienced me. So in your mind, who am I? It's a tough question, and I can imagine them trying to answer it. We've experienced wonder and grace and extraordinary stuff in this one Jesus. Stuff that could only come from God. But something doesn't quite gel. It's not what we expected from God, but in the end, Peter says, "You are the Messiah." The Hebrew word for anointed one, the one of God, the promised one. Greek word was Christ. You are the Messiah, the Christ. And Jesus says, "Well done, Peter. Don't tell anyone." He says this often in Mark, and it seems to be a way of saying, look, don't tell people this bit of information yet, because they'll get it wrong. For us, the reader, don't think you know what this means. Keep reading, because it might turn your understanding on its head, which it does for me. He then goes on and says, look, we're going on a journey down south to the royal city, to Jerusalem, to where the temple is. And when we get there, the religious leaders of the day are going to arrest me, try me, hand me over to the Romans, who will crucify me, I'll die. And on the third day I'll rise again. Peter takes him aside and says, but Jesus, didn't we just talk about this and you're the Messiah? What's all this talk of suffering and death and arrests and everything? And Jesus says, Peter, you're not talking with the words of God, but of humans, human wisdom. Get behind me, Satan, he says. Go away from me, if that's what you believe, because that's not the truth. You see, Peter had in mind what everyone else did, that the Messiah would be this military leader, king, who would come and rally the troops of Israel and vanquish the foes, in this case the Romans, send them out back to where they belonged and liberate the nation to be a nation in its own power and might and strength and glory under God. It was about military power and might taking on the military power and might of the world. And Jesus is saying, that's not who the Messiah is. That's not who I am. If you want to be my disciple, then you've got to deny yourself. Take up your cross and follow me. The one who loses their life for my sake will find it. But the one who tries to save their life will lose it. These words are upside down and back to front and turn the ways of our world on its head. As I read each morning these reflections on life and faith and following Him, they lead me in one direction. And when I look on the news feed and see the media, the advertising and other stories of the day and what the leaders and powers and people in the world want me to do, I'm conflicted. Because what Jesus invites me into is sometimes the opposite. He says, your wealth can never save you. You can have as much money as you like, but that won't save you. It won't liberate you. It won't bring you peace and happiness. Yes, you need so much money to live, to have enough food and clothing and shelter and so on. But beyond that, it's not going to make you happier, and it certainly won't save you. You can have as much power as you like, but it won't save you. And when you use power over others and your power becomes violent and abusive, it actually will destroy you. Not only you, but the world. And so I say, let it go. Deny yourself. It's not about giving up little things, self-abnegation. It's not just giving up chocolates for Lent or something. It's actually saying, I don't know who I am. I don't know who I am, and I need to discover my being, my sense of identity. Do I find it in being someone who is money or power or fame or can do this or do that or do something else? Do I identify myself by kicking a piece of leather around a football field or playing a musical instrument or singing? Do I know myself in being a leader, someone with power and might or a big bank account? Is that how I identify and understand myself? And what happens when I'm too old to kick a ball around, or my lips give way and I can't blow an instrument, or I lose my voice and I can't sing, or the bank account gets whittled down, or I lose my role or power, or I get old and can't do it anymore? Who am I then? And who will I be? And so often, as I look around the world and look at the news, I feel helpless and powerless. When I go into a hospital room and there's someone who's dying, and I'm not sure what to say, and I feel helpless, and all I can do is be there and sit with them. Or when someone is in the midst and the depths of pain and despair, and all I can do is listen. Who am I? Who are they? But maybe in giving something of myself, of recognising my own powerlessness and helplessness, in denying that the world is about me and offering myself in love, I start to discover what life is about. And I start to discover something of who I am. And Jesus invites me into this way of humility, this way of letting go and not seeking to be in control, but to deny that. And to deny the sense of identity that comes with wealth or power or fame or whatever it is. And to find my identity simply and profoundly as a child of God, loved and beloved. But more than that, to trust my life and my being into this God who holds me in life and death and life again. And this is the story that Mark tells of Jesus, the one who lived and died and lived again in a new and profound way, and invites us into this life of dying and rising, of finding life in love in sharing love, in being open and welcoming people into a community of life and hope. This is the way of Jesus, and this is what we're invited into. Amen.